Hello and welcome to this episode of Pipeline to Profitability. I'm Alan Ferguson. This podcast is sponsored by Service Success Academy. Today, I'm joined by Profit and Wealth Guru, Ruth King. Ruth is a nationally recognized HVAC consultant, author, and HVAC license holder. For the past 30 plus years, Ruth has been instrumental in helping contractors grow profitably through consulting, speaking, training, books, as well as operation manuals. Her latest software, Financially Fit Business, gives business owners the tools to analyze their financial statements in less than 10 minutes so they can spot minor issues and take care of them before they become major crises. Ruth is especially proud of one contractor she helped grow from 750,000 to 10 million in revenues. They just recently sold the company for 9 million. Her latest book, 101 Dumb Financial Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them, is just recently released, along with her previous books, The Courage to be Profitable and The Ugly Truth About Cash, were named along with Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, Richard Branson, and others as two of the 37 books all startups should read. Ruth helps contractors build a thriving, profitable business so they can achieve financial freedom. Let's bring Ruth into this episode. Well, thanks for joining me today, Ruth. I'm really excited to get you back on the podcast. You have been on the Pipeline to Profitability podcast before, and you've got an amazing story. You got some. I'm going to dig into your books, and I know you've got many great books. And so, how about we let everyone know who is Ruth King, what is it you're doing, and let's promote what you're about.
Okay, thank you first, Alan, for having me. I appreciate it. So, I've been working with contractors since 1987. Yes, that's a long time. And it doesn't matter whether you're plumbing, heating and air, electrical, pool and spa, generator. I'm not sure what I've left out, but I probably have, so I don't mean to offend anybody.
Brains.
We generate revenue through labor. If we do not have a billable hour, we don't produce revenue. It's not the service work you do. It's not the installs. It's not the projects. It's not that's the result of the billable hour. So for our industries, it's really, really, really important to actually make sure we are productive with our billable hours, because we have, quote unquote, the double whammy. And what do I mean by that is, your suppliers. You can walk into a Ferguson, you can walk into any supplier, and if they have a part on the shelf, they don't sell that part today. Guess what? They can sell it tomorrow. Our labor is very different. If we don't use all 8 billable hours today, we can't save 2 hours and say, okay, tomorrow we got 10 billable hours. Doesn't work that way. So we have to look at it from a perspective of maximizing our billable hours every single day. And so from that perspective, that's what everything comes out of. The Courage to be Profitable, which is the book that I wrote that explains P&Ls and balance sheets in English. If you keep the billable hours in mind, that book obviously makes sense anyway, but you can dive deeper into it there. That's number one. And I just finished a book called 101 Dumb Financial Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. And it's all about how you generate revenue. Our industry is billable hours, but other industries are like memberships and clubs. It's the memberships. The more memberships you have, hopefully the more profitable you are, assuming that you have profitable memberships. Manufacturers, it's, profitability per product. So we have the lovely thing of having a way we generate revenue that's perishable.
I know the crazy thing is we pay our technicians for, let's say, 8 hours a day. Some different laws in different parts of the US and Australia might be 7.5 hours a day, and and we want them to bill as many hours as possible. And all the companies that I work with, not all, majority of companies I work with are flat rate, and use that billable hour system. And the average company, and I'm not too sure about the companies that you work with, but the average companies that I work with bill out at less than 50%. Between 40 and 50% seems to be the average of the companies that I work with. I'd love to hear your take on that, and also your thoughts on margin pricing, which is another subject that I've ventured into.
Well, the companies that I work with, a lot of them start out 40 to 50% until the light bulb goes on and they truly understand that we have perishable ways of generating revenue. Bam, billable hours go up amazingly. And so what we found that really works that way is to figure out where it is originally. And if it's 40%, it's 40%. You post the number up on this big orange piece of paper, just with the percentage, nothing else with it. And human beings being what we are, is like, what is that number? What does it mean? Da, 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 da. A couple days later, you explain the number and say, look, and explain perishable billable hours, and say, we got to get our billable hours up. We need to get it up north of 60%, preferably north of 75%. Now, we can't go from 45 or wherever you are to 75 in one, instantaneously. So let's set some goals. And as long as we keep the billable hours over, let's say $50, if you're at 40, going to 50 is significant. I'll give everybody a $25 bonus for keeping it there. When we get to 60, we'll give everybody a $50 bonus. And when we get to 75 and beyond, we'll give you $100 a quarter for keeping it there.
Love it.
It's amazing how well that works.
I'd love to hear some of the ideas on how you help companies improve from, let's say, 40% to 70%. What are some of the things that you recommended they do, Ruth?
Okay, number one is we have to look at the warehouse itself. One of my clients has an itty bitty warehouse, and they do close to $30 million a year out of that warehouse. Wow. So what we came up with is the guys come in at the end of the day, they go away. There's a warehouse person who empties their truck, gets the truck ready for the next day. So the next morning, they stagger them coming in like every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. They're in the shop for 5 minutes and they're on the road. And this is for the project work. The service work, nobody comes in except for meeting time. And then they're out within, X period of time. So, I mean, just by doing those two things, you're going to up your billable hours all by itself. And then we look at dispatch and making sure that they are routing effectively, because if you send one person from one side of town to the other side of town and it takes 30 minutes and there's a call that's 5 minutes away, we've wasted about a half an hour. That's stupid. All right. So we make sure dispatch is doing their job properly. And then the guys figure out ways that they can do it themselves. And the people in the office know how the guys waste time, and the guys know how the people in the office waste time. And we put them all together, and we get some really, really creative and good ideas. But those are a few of the ones that are just make probably in the beginning the biggest impact. When we get to above 60, it's harder. I promise you, it's a lot harder. But we also look at service as being billable, because we have a service call fee, and the customer pays that when they go to the job. Now, many of them include it in their flat rate. And so if they do a repair, then the service call fee is waived. But that service call fee is in there. So you are getting paid for that. And make sure that it's really and truly routed effectively, routed efficiently. The guys hate waiting around too. And the other thing that helps a lot is if you're on GPS, because I literally just had a conversation with one of my clients. All the techs are doing well except for this one who has an hour a day of idle time. What does that do for your billable hours? Boom, down. So, you start looking at all of these things and looking at all of these different ways to make sure that the guys in the field are productive. I should say ladies too in the field. I'm sorry. There are women who do really, really well. My plumber was a woman until she left the company. And now I have a guy, and she was better.
We had a few women plumbers in our companies over the years. Not as common in Australia, but I've noticed, a lot of the companies here in the US are up for it, and I don't have a problem with that as long as I don't think there should be any discrimination. A block drain is a block drain. It really doesn't care whether it's a male or a female cleaning it. But there's certain jobs that most ladies, not all, wouldn't really like to do. But look, that aside, I can understand why you prefer to work with the ladies, Ruth. That's that's.
I think the guy who takes care of my heating and air is a guy, and he's phenomenal. Leslie was phenomenal. All right. And I know the good and the bad because I'm in the industry.
Mm.
And she used to bring the guys along as trainees to show them what to do and how to do what they did. Her work was neat. Her work was straight. The angles were perfect. I never had a problem with what she did, ever. So that's why I liked her.
I'm with you. Now, our training school here in Houston, it's Joe Cunningham's training school, and I help him with the plumbing. Our trainer in the plumbing department is female, and she does a phenomenal job. Like, she's really, really good. So, look, I'm all for that. But like I said, not as many companies in Australia. Obviously the companies that I work with, I would encourage them to employ more females, but that's a recruitment thing. So, Ruth, I know we did the first podcast together. I think it was around 2013, might have around then somewhere. But I'd like to maybe give our listeners a little bit of insight about you and your journey and where it all started and how you got into the trade. So I know there's a lot of our friends in common that know you would love to hear a little bit about Ruth King.
So I started out as a chemical engineer. And you're going, what does the chemical engineer have to do with this? Nothing. Zero. Nada. I had 2 jobs in chemical engineering in the summers that I absolutely loved. They were internship type jobs. And I got out in the real world and absolutely hated it. So I was in graduate school at night with a woman who actually was working for Service America, which was the franchisor of heating and air companies back then in the 80s. Ron Smith started that, moved it to Atlanta, and they were looking for people to help them grow it. And, I found out in grad school that I'm really good at explaining numbers in English, not in accounting babble. So I started working with Service America and found a niche. I mean, that's literally how it happened. 1987, my first client. And I had Larry as my client until December of 2021. He sold this business then. I helped him value it and sell it. It was time for a lot of different reasons. And he's happy as a clam doing other things right now from that perspective. So I generally have either very long or very short relationships with clients because if you're not going to do it, I don't want to waste your time, your money, and my time. Life's too short. Maybe I had a different view when I was in my 30s, but after 35 plus years in this business, you're either going to do it or you're not. And I can help you if you're going to want to do it. But if you don't want to do it, don't waste everybody's time. That's the way I look at the world right now. We do a lot of work on the financial side of business. We do, we talked about the billable hours. And I don't do margin work. And I don't do margin work. Mine is very much for every billable hour, how many dollars drop to the bottom line. I could care less what your gross margin is, because I can show you a client that I started working with who had 2 jobs, both had a 40% gross margin. One, I think, was $73 an hour net profit, and the other was negative $20 and some odd cents. So they paid the customer $20 an hour to do that job. They both had 40% gross margins. Gross margins only go so far. They don't cover overhead. So you've got to put a little, you've got an overhead cost per hour, you have a net profit per hour, and you build backwards. And so that's how I do my pricing. And I don't do it, divide by 1 minus the gross margin. And I used to teach that too. I know. Light bulb went off when I had a group of clients in about 2004, 2005, who all had about the same gross margin Some were doing really well and some weren't. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And that's when it all started. It's when it really and truly all started. And it's really funny because they were entrenched. You know our industry. We are very much, we do it this way. We always do it this way. We will continue to do it this way until we get hit over the head or between the eyes with the 2x4. And so took me about 2 years to get everybody through it and trying it and using it. And they were paying me. All right. So it's a little bit, they weren't, it would have been a different story, but none of them in the group will go back the other way. You make more money, you make the money you want. And the cool part about it is you have choices. And I'll give you a perfect example of choices. One of the contractors that I work with had new construction crews, and they finished a big job in the fall, and they had nothing major on the books until spring. So what do you do with them? You can't fire them or lay them off because they'll have a job tomorrow because they were really good crews. And if you keep them all winter long, guess what happens to the profitability of that department? Hi. So believe it or not, this public works job came up. And it started late fall, went to spring. So it's like, perfect. It's short, sweet, and it's our two crews, how their schedule is. And so we knew how many hours the job was taking. We knew the materials for it. We knew what their overhead cost per hour was. The thing that we had to really define was what net profit per hour we wanted. We had to get this job. All right. It wasn't an option. We weren't looking to make a killing on it. We just wanted to keep the guys productively busy over a slower period of time. So we bid it at $5 net profit per hour. $5. That's it. And it was really funny because everybody said, what? You can't do it for that, right? Yeah, we did. We job cost the job at the end of it. It came in at $6. Okay. But would we do that in a very busy time? No. But knowing what our overhead costs per hour were, we knew what our costs were, we could change the net profit that we wanted on this job so that we got the job. If we said, so we're just going to divide by the gross margin or whatever we do by it, or a markup or something like that, you're guessing. We knew. And so I don't suggest that, when you're really, really busy. But if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and you absolutely need to get a job, that's the way to do it.
No, I agree. As owning a service company, it's we've discussed that it's our labor is our biggest cost by far. And when you've got a lot of hours that you're not billing, it kills you, right?
Oh, you're dead.
So,
you're dead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I have actually read your book, The Courage to be Profitable. I've listened to the audio. I've actually given my staff copies. It's a great book, but you've got other books as well, right? And I'd like to hear a little bit about some of and you're going to get I'm going to give you the opportunity, Ruth, to let everyone know your new venture, which sounds really exciting, how they can get a hold of you, how they can get access to some of your great books. But I'd love to hear a little bit about some of your other books that you've written. I hope it's not too many on the list.
Well, there's actually 6 now.
Okay.
The Courage to be Profitable was the first in the series truly about financials. All right. The first 2, one was just small business related. The second one was management related. And then The Courage to be Profitable really started hitting the financial things. And you've read it. It's in English. It's not an accounting babble. There's great stories in there. And all of them come from my clients. Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Of course. Okay?
And then I wrote Profit or Wealth because I realized that some people were profitable, but they weren't building wealth. I mean, it's one thing to be profitable and, eat all the profits, so to speak, but you still have to build wealth, and you do that by being profitable and building wealth. That was the second one in the series. And then the third one is came out in September, which is 101 Dumb Financial Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. And there are some really stupid mistakes in that book. It's something that once you read it, I mean, I've had a lot of people preview the book and read the book and go, oh my gosh, didn't think about this, or I didn't think about this, and I won't make this mistake again, or you prevented me from making this particular mistake. And that's the goal of it, because I think you learn best from the mistakes of others if you take them to heart, so that you don't make them. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes, but you've done your homework, you've done the research, you've done things, you've read books, you've talked to people who've made really what can be considered sometimes very tragic mistakes. And you're not going to do that because they did it. You learn from their heartache. So it's not that you're not having heartache, but you're not going to have their heartache.
I tell you something that I took from your book, and our company, we had about 100 staff, and we had several bookkeepers, several accountants. And one of the things I always took to my head accountant, and he hated it, I said, stop giving me financial fruit salad. Now, I'd like you to elaborate on that. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what financial fruit salad is, I'm sure you're about to tell us, right, Ruth?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Financial fruit salad is the best way to lulled into false sense of security or get scared out of your mind. One of the two. Basically, what we really want to have happen is for revenues in 1 month to match the expenses of those revenues in the same month. All right. So we're in a situation that if you bill in January, for say, but you don't have the expenses for that job until February, January is going to look phenomenal. February is going to look like crap. And neither one of them is right. That's financial statement fruit salad. When you have January being your apples month, and you got the revenue in there, and February being your orange month, and you put the two together when you job cost, you have a fruit salad. You got to have apple salad. You got to have, in Georgia, it's peach salad. Okay. So you got to have peach salad in Georgia. But the reality of the situation is if your gross margin goes up and down like a yo-yo, you have financial statement fruit salad. I've always said that I don't particularly care what your gross margin is. I do care that it's consistent.
Yeah.
So if it's supposed to be 42% for your production work, it better be 42%. It better not be 35, 46, an average 42, but it better be 42. And that's how you tell whether you have financial statement fruit salad. Your head accountant was lazy.
Look, sometimes it's just the various departments not getting their shit together and providing the information. And it's always that last few days of the month is always the difficult time, yes, especially when you've got bigger jobs that roll from 1 month to the other. And but look, what of some of the books that I have read a couple of your books. You talk about, I think you've got books based around hiring mistakes and having the right, so but look, I'm gonna get you to do a book recommendation to everyone, but I'm really fascinated about the new venture that you've got and the new products, and I'd love to be able to promote them to everyone I'm working with in Australia. So we had a call the week before last, and you explained to me. So right now is a great opportunity to maybe let's talk about the new product, because everyone that I'm in contact with needs an improvement in this area, right?
Yeah. So I wanted something, because I'm one person. I mean, I can only spread myself so thin. So I created what's called Financially Fit Business. And what Financially Fit Business does is you enter your P&Ls and balance sheets every month, click a button, and it gives you your trends of where your business is going. There's 14 trend graphs, and it's doing it on a monthly basis as well as a trailing basis. And you can see if your trends are going the right way. You can see if your trends are going the wrong way. There's help, there's videos, there's all sorts of fun things that go along. So if they're not going the right way, you can have places to look. And we also have people who can help you if you need the help. CPAs, I can help. There's a whole bunch of people who can help you if your books are a mess. But the reality is you want to know the knowledge.
Yeah.
You're tired of the books being a mess. You're tired of not having cash. You're tired of all the crap that goes on. And with Financially Fit Businesses, which all of my clients are on, by the way, you're in a situation that you can spot the minor things before they blow up in your face. So, it's it's really, I try to make it very, very inexpensive. It's $97 to enter up to 2 years worth of data. You don't have to. If your books are a mess, do not enter back data because you have garbage in equals garbage out. Fix the books first. And then it's $30 a month, no contracts. I mean, it's less than taking somebody to lunch.
Just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put some details of that in the show notes and make sure that everyone gets access to that. So a book recommendation now can be one of your books, or it can just be a really great book that you've had access to recently that you might like everyone to get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean, you can get my books. They're all on Amazon. It's all on Kindle. So if you want to read it electronically, and it's all on Audible, all 6 of them. Okay. So from my perspective, one of the most interesting books that I've read recently is You Should Quit. And it's an interesting book that if you're not willing to put in the hard work, why are you in business? I mean, that's really the bottom line of this book. I mean, I summarized it in one sentence, but it really and truly, I read it originally going, okay, what's this title about? Because you know me, I never quit, right? But it looks at it from a very different perspective of looking at the world. And it's a good book for owners to read, to make a decision as to whether they're going to do this or whether they're going to do something else. And it's an interesting book. It's a very interesting book.
I'm looking that one up straight away.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I read it, and you know what I came up with, right? I'm not quitting.
A reason not to quit. Another reason. I don't know. What did you come up with?
No, I came up with I'm not quitting. I mean, I'll go through all the crap and everything else like that. We'll figure this out and make it work and those types of things. So that's essentially how I got out of the book. But I know there are a lot of contractors out there who are, started their businesses because they didn't want to work for somebody else. They thought they could do it better, or a lot of different things like that. And then they get out in the real world and find out it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And they get the ideas that, well, maybe I should quit. Am I willing to do this? Read this book before you make that decision.
I can say this with the hundreds of contractors, companies that I've worked with. There is a lot of contractors out there that really shouldn't be working for themselves because they're not willing to do what needs to be done. It is hard work, not just it's hard work. I don't want to elaborate too much. It's especially when you don't have the knowledge, the financial knowledge, or you don't have the help. But look, there is plenty of help out there, and I'm happy to help any contractors that want to grow their plumbing and drain business. I'm here to help. Anyone that wants some financial information, Ruth King is the right person. So I'll get you to, we'll round off the show today, Ruth, and I'll get you to maybe share some contact details. I'll put them all in the show notes as well. And anything you'd like to offer our audience besides your great products.
If you go to what I call my platform website, I'm sure there's a better name for it, which is ruthking.info. It has everything on there. I have a giveaway, which is how to tell if your financial statements are wrong in less than a minute. Download that. It will take you less than a minute to look at your financial statements every month and find out, at least from an overview perspective, whether they're have things on there that are not right. All right. Like negative cash, we know is not right. Negative payroll taxes, we know is not right. And there's things like that in there. It takes less than a minute to go look at it in there. So if you go to ruthking.info, it has all of it in there. If you're interested in the financial analysis software, go to financiallyfit.business, not .com, .business. And those are the 2 places to get a hold of me the best.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah,
always good to see you. It's been a few years since we've done this, but I'll look forward to catching up with you. I don't know if you go to many of the trade events. I know Service World's got one. Service Nation's got an event coming up in Phoenix next month, but I'm sure we'll catch up at some of the events, if not just for a chat. So Thanks again for joining us, Ruth. Do appreciate all the wisdom and knowledge that you share with me and the industry. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining on another great podcast, Pipeline to Profitability. Good to see you,
Thanks.
Ruth.